I'm Franz Pear with Cyber Skyline, and today we are going to be pen testing web apps with Postman. Now, this is a handy tool if you're just getting started with web application security and you're not yet very familiar with coding. And Postman is going to help us craft HTTP requests that will exploit two different sites, one that has a lack of user input validation vulnerability and another one that has a SQL injection vulnerability. So it's going to be very exciting for us today here. Now, before we dive into the actual pen testing, I think it is very important that we kind of review what Postman is. And so Postman is a web application that lets you test other web applications. And I'm going to move my head out of the way here. It has a graphical user interface that makes it a lot easier to craft HTTP requests versus crafting your own by writing code. And it also encapsulates and proxies your requests. So we see this a lot when you have people trying to learn cybersecurity, web application security from a school network. Sometimes those school networks will have a WAF, a web application firewall, which may detect, an attempted SQL injection attack and just not send it at all. And so you might actually be trying to exploit something and you're thinking it should work, but nothing's working, and it could be because the WAF is just dropping your requests. And so Postman helps you get around that because the encapsulation puts your request in a format that the WAF might not be able to identify as a SQL injection attempt. But this is what it's going to look like. You have your web request here that you craft from the browser that gets sent to the Postman proxy server, and then that gets sent to your target server, and then it comes all the way back. So works like a normal proxy. And since Postman is a web application, it also means that you can use it on any browser. So no specific operating system requirements, nothing you need to install. Really simple and easy and quick to get started. And so these are just gonna be the 5 steps that you need to use. The first step is to just sign up on their website. There is a free plan. It's not obvious that there's a free plan. They focus on a lot of their paid plans, but there is one. You can just sign up for it, and that will be enough to do everything we're gonna do today. Once you sign up, you'll go to the dashboard, and I'll show you this. You're going to want to create a new HTTP request. Just plug in the URL of the web and the endpoint that you're trying to test, and then can do your configurations, your headers, your payloads, all of that. And then you hit the little blue send button there, and then you'll be able to see a response in this bottom window over here. And we're going to see this live in action. Actually, like right now. So no need to dilly-dally, no need to wait. Let's go ahead and try this out. So I am going to switch over away from the slides and into our challenge over here in our practice. And I can zoom in a little bit more, and we're going to be looking at 2 web applications. And so this first challenge here, we are needing to obtain a flag. It looks like this is some sort of like lottery website. And the gist is that we're gonna have to rig it. We're gonna have to win the lottery without actually having to spend all of our money. And so you can see here we got $10,000. Tickets are $5 each. So all right, balance of $10,000, $5 each. If we try to do this normally, we can only buy 2,000 tickets, and then we're out of tickets. And our win chance is quite small. And then this is going to reset every 15 seconds just in case we run out of money because we spent them all on lottery tickets. Probably not a great investment unless you can find a way to rig the system. So let's go ahead and do that. So I already have Postman over here. I created my account. I'm going to go to my workspace, and then I'm going to hit this little plus at the top. I'll zoom in a little bit more as well. And this will create a new request. So we need to get the URL. So to do that, I'm just going to come over here, and I am going to open this up in the developer tools. And I'm going to need to dock this so you all can see what I'm doing here. All right, let's see if I can get this docked. All right. So I've got my developer tools docked. If you don't know how to open the developer tools, it's usually the F12 button, or you can also right click and do inspect or inspect element, and that will pull up the developer tools. Now that we have the developer tools open, what we want to do is get the URL of the whatever endpoint is actually purchasing these lottery tickets. So we don't want this URL up here. That's the URL for the web page, right? This is the URL for the web page. It loads the page. It doesn't actually buy the tickets when we visit this URL. So what we need to do is we need to look at the network tab in our developer tools. And when we actually go and try to buy some lottery tickets, we should see request going to the server, which is going and actually buying those tickets. And you can actually see here, every 15 seconds or so, we see this request to get the status. And so that's updating our display here because this resets every 15 seconds. And we hit 0, there's another status request, and the timer restarted. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy one ticket. I hit purchase tickets, and you can see that when I did that, tickets went up by 1, our balance went down by $5. And then this is gonna reset right now. Again, resets every 15 seconds. So we gotta be quick about this. And this is the purchase endpoint. So this is what we want, not the URL up in the browser. Again, the URL up in the browser, that's the URL to view the page. What we want is the URL of the endpoint that actually does the buying of the tickets. So that's this purchase endpoint. Now, in addition to looking at the network tab and trying to determine it this way, something else that we could do is view source on this page. And we can look at the JavaScript. There should be some code somewhere. Maybe it's not JavaScript. Maybe it's just a form purchase, like a form submission. But if I go and let's just say I want to look at main.js, that's likely where we're going to find our code. You can see here that there is a purchase button, and then on click, it will check to see if you have enough money, and then it will make an HTTP post request to the /purchase endpoint, and then it's going to send the cost and the tickets in that request. So we could either have looked at the network tab, which is what we did, or you could look at the source code and actually see the code that is making that request. Now, we could just finagle with this and try to modify the parameters, the data that is being sent in this request directly from the developer tools, but I'm going to assume that we don't want to worry about all this code. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go and look at the network tab, and I'm just going to copy all the important information we need and put that into Postman. So this is the URL. I'm going to go into Postman. I'm going to put this as the URL. I need to make sure that I am doing a post request, not a get request. And then if I look at the payload, I can see we have cost 5 and tickets 1. So it looks like we're spending $5 to buy one ticket. The vulnerability here is what happens if we try to buy more tickets for no more money. Like, is the system actually just taking the costs that we report at face value and going to subtract this from our balance regardless of how many tickets we're going to buy? Or is it actually going to verify that the cost is correct based on the number of tickets? The spoiler here is that it doesn't actually verify, and that's why there's a vulnerability. And we're going to take advantage of that. So if I go to Postman, I need to go to body. So we've got params, that's the parameters. That is going to be what is in the URL parameters. What we need to do is we need to modify the payload, which is in the body. So not the parameters, not the headers. We are going to the body. And this is going to be raw data, and I'm going to select JSON. And the reason for that is because if I look at the headers here, it says the request headers say accept application JSON / JavaScript. And so it's, oh, actually content type, that's what I'm looking for. Content type application / JSON. So that is indicating what type of content this request is sending to the server, application JSON. And we can also tell that from the source code. The source code does a JSON stringify. All right, so we have our JSON here, and it looks like there are two values. We have cost and tickets. So we have cost, and cost is set to $5, and tickets, which is set to 1. And so if I hit send right now, we can actually verify that everything that we wanted to do went through correctly. So we got the OK status, and this is the response headers. Looks like this is this went through. But again, this resets every 15 seconds. So unless you want to go like jump back and forth between these tabs, it's a little much. So what I'm going to do is actually take the endpoint for the status check, and I am going to make this another request in Postman. And if I hit send, I can actually see the results here. You know, this is how many tickets I have. And again, this is going to reset every 15 seconds. And then the time number here is going to indicate how many seconds do I have before this resets. So if I go over here, I hit send, I come back really quickly, and you can see here, tickets is now 2001. So increased by 1, and our money went down by 5. And it's been more than 15 seconds now. So if I do this again, it reset. So let's try to exploit this. And instead of doing cost is 5 and tickets is 1, what if I did cost is 5 and tickets is like, I don't know, that's a big number. Hopefully that's enough to win the lottery. If I hit send and I go over here, you can see, looks like we got the flag. And I think we actually overflowed it a little bit, where there are too many tickets for it to even to be able to handle. So just for the sake of being able to see this properly, I'm going to run this again. And there you can see we've got 102,000 tickets in the lottery. And that's how we were able to exploit it. And if we are actually fast enough, let me refresh the page here. If I hit send, and then I refresh over here, there we go. I can see our win chance is at 51%. Visually, we can see it. And then this will reset, and our win chance goes back down to 2%. So without having to write any code, without having to mess around with the developer tools too much, we were able to craft this request and buy way more tickets than we should have been able to, because our input here in terms of the cost and the tickets was not being properly validated by the server. And if I go over here and take the flag that we got from breaking the lottery, I should be able to go and submit that, and I got that marked as correct. So let's do another challenge, a slightly harder challenge. And this is a challenge that involves a SQL injection vulnerability. So what we can see here is that we have a search box, and what I'll do to try to identify that this is a SQL injection vulnerability is just enter in characters which I might expect to mess things up if this is a SQL database. And so the first thing I'll do a single tick. So the single tick, single quote, if I hit enter, looks like it went okay. And this looks like it's a directory of medical professionals for this clinic here. And a single tick, no results. So what if I type in A? Do I get anything? Okay, so I get results where we have people who have an A in their name. If I do a Z, does anyone have a Z in their name? No, so that's empty. All right, but we want to see if there's a SQL injection vulnerability here. So if I do a double quote, that's another thing I want to test. I can see that this produces a SQLite error. And let's just zoom in. So this not only tells us that there is a potential SQL injection vulnerability here, but that there's specifically a SQLite database that is being used, and that can help us identify how we might need to craft our attack. And I could spend kind of all day here just like typing in different different combinations of SQL characters, SQL attempts. What I find is that when I go through this process, it's a very, very big trial and error process when it comes to doing kind of this artisanal SQL injection attack. You're going to have to try a lot of different things. You're going to find out a lot of things don't work. And the benefit from doing this through Postman is that Postman will actually store a history. And so if you try different things and you find that going down one path was more successful than another path, you can go look through your history and figure that out a lot more quickly. Whereas multiple times I've discovered that when I just go straight into the box, I might forget, like, wait, what was that thing that I typed like 3 attempts ago that seemed to work a little bit better than what I'm doing now? And I have to kind of reinvent the wheel a little bit and waste some time. And so going through Postman is a little bit advantageous there because it lets you have that history. And I can actually see that by clicking on history over here. So what I'll do is I'll close out the two requests that I had going, and I'm going to start a new one. And I'm going to open up the network tab again in the developer tools, and I'm just going to type in my my double quote, which I believe is what caused the SQLite error. So we have the double quote there, and it looks like what is happening is that double quote is being put as a query parameter in the URL. So what I want to do is go to my request here. I put in that URL, and you can see that this is the encoded version, the URL encoded version of the quote, the double quote. And if I do a decode, there's the double quote there. So this is encoded. So something that we need to keep in mind when it comes to SQL injection in particular is that you need to be very, very cognizant of the encoding. Do you need to URL encode it? Do you not need to URL encode it? What types of encoding might also be at play? Maybe there's some base64 encoding. Be very cognizant of that, because if it's not encoded properly, you might actually know exactly what SQL injection attacks to run, but if it's not encoded, it might not get accepted by the server properly, and it doesn't work. So the encoding is extremely important. And so I already showed you how you can switch between the encoded and the decoded version, where basically you just select the value here, you double click to select the whole thing, and then you can switch between encode and decode. Now, that might get a little bit tedious, so I'm gonna break my rule a little bit with saying that we don't need to do any coding. And what I want to do is go to this section in Postman for pre-request script. And this is another cool thing about Postman, is that you can actually write your own custom functions here in JavaScript to execute before you hit the send button. And that might help you if you're trying to, let's just say, for example, you want to actually brute force like a login. You could actually have an array with all the different passwords, or you could have a function that generates the passwords. And then in this pre-request script, you can actually make additional requests and be able to automate that process a little bit for yourself. But in advance, I actually went on Stack Overflow, and I got this little code put together, which what this is going to do is it's going to update the value of the queue parameter, and it's going to URI encode it before it actually sends it out. So what that means is that instead of me having to go here every single time and make sure that I hit this encode button before I hit send, this script will do it automatically for me. And so with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just type in my quote there, and I hit send. And then if I go to preview mode and I scroll down, we get unrecognized token error, a SQLite error. So now it's time to put on our SQL injection hat and figure out like, okay, so we were able to trigger a SQL error. How do we actually do something useful with this? And maybe we probably want a goal, an objective in mind. And so what I'm going to do is go back to the prompt and look at the questions and see if there's any one of these questions we want to answer. And I'm just going to go straight for the last kind of 2 questions here, which are asking for, what's the name of a person who has this password and what's this person's password. And so our objective then is going to be to see, can we figure out the passwords of the users on this system through a SQL injection attack? That is our current objective. And so to do this, we want to be able to first figure out what tables are in the SQL database, because we don't even know what to query for right now. We need to figure that out. And so we need to identify that. And to do that, we know that this is a SQLite database. And so if you go online, there are a lot of different tutorials and guides which can give you advice on how to query for the tables within a SQLite database. And we're going to actually try one of those techniques to just identify what's on the system. And to do this, we need to think now about our SQL injection attack. So whatever we are supplying as the input, that is going to be sent into a query, which is going and hitting that SQL database. And to kind of help you all visualize this a little bit, you probably want to think about the SQL, like what is the SQL statement that is being executed? And so my guess, just naively thinking, would be based on these results where we have two columns, one for name and one for profession, there's probably a SQL query that the server is running that looks something like this: select name, comma, profession from my table, where I guess it's searching for name. So name, and then like, and then there's going to be something, something here where it's going to add in our query parameter. So it's going to look something like that. And I'm going to actually hide this to make more space. So our query is being added to the very end, and it's going to be encapsulated in these double quotes. And that is the reason why when we put in our double quote, it triggers this error. Because if this double quote is going in here for query, then that means that the final result that is being sent to the database looks like this, where it's getting 3 quotes in a row, which is, it needs to have matching quotes. So this is an incorrect number of quotes, and that's why we're getting this unrecognized token error. And so if this is what the query looks like, what we want to do is actually see if we can chain 2 SQL queries together and see if we can get all the results there. And so what I can do is, because this SQL statement is being terminated with this semicolon, I will just do a double quote semicolon, and what that will do is it will make this initial select kind of like go and get nothing. It'll be blank. And then we can run a second query and get something that we actually care about. And so what we actually care about is seeing what tables are in this database. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a select name, comma, SQL. And I'll make a little bit more space here so you can all read that. From SQLite master where type equals table. So in theory, and hopefully this works, when I run this, the first thing that's going to happen is that a select is being run against this table and it's not going to return anything. And then immediately after that, a second query is going to go in where it is going to select the tables that are in this database. And hopefully we can see those in the results. And so if I hit send here, what you can see is it looks like when we did a search for a blank, it gave us all the records, but it's not giving us passwords. It's just giving us name and profession. We want passwords. And so we then, in our query, we need to make sure that we are grabbing the password field, because the one that the web application is making is not querying for the password field. And it looks like when we chained this second SQL query to do the select name and SQL from the SQLite master for the tables, we can see here there looks to be a users table, and the users table has a name, has a type, a password, and a username. So I'm gonna guess that the type refers to like the profession, and that, I mean, username's username and password is password. So let's try and grab that then. And so what I'll do is I will edit my my query over here. So instead of select name and SQL from SQLite master, what we want to do is select name and let's just say name, username, password from, and it's the users table. And you know, let's just do like where 1 equals 1. I don't even think we, you know, this is just to just get everything. And when we run that query, you can see first what happens is we get all of the initial professionals here without their passwords. That's the first query. And then now the second query, we've got their name, their username, and this looks to be their passwords. And so now we can go back to the challenge, and it's asking what's the name of the person who has the password of Gray Blob. All right, Gray Blob, that would be Kim Jenkins. And then what's Mike's password over here, and copy paste. There we go. All right. Actually, y'all didn't get to see that. I'll move out of the way. We got our green check marks here, so we got those right. So that's a very quick overview of how you can use Postman. Again, like the real benefits here are that it's a little bit easier to edit and craft your HTTP requests using an interface like this versus, I mean, you have a couple other alternatives. Otherwise, you could just open up the developer tools like I did over here and type in the console, and then you have to write your own JavaScript code to craft all the HTTP requests yourself. Or you could like open up a Linux terminal and use wget or curl to make these requests. It's a little bit more complicated to use any of those other methods. I think that this, you know, having nice graphical user interfaces is the easiest way to go about doing this, especially if you are a beginner. But hopefully you all found that helpful, and good luck out there.